It's taken a while. Hey, and we should be live now. Welcome everybody, if there's anybody out there right now, to You Can't Make This Shit Up. Let me go over to the other platforms other than YouTube because we can now should be live streaming. Let me check on our LinkedIn, make sure everything is working right.
Well, it says you're live, so everything should be fine.
Welcome
everyone. Welcome to another episode of You Can't Make This Shit Up. This is your pre-debate or
pre-game.
Pre-fight.
This is debate pre-game. Debate pre-game.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be interesting. Nobody in the audience. Donald Trump said that his vice president will be in the audience, so I don't know what he means by that.
Online, I guess.
Doug Burgum. Has there been a Doug Burgum sighting at the airports today in Atlanta? Never know.
Have to figure out what's going on. So
I think that it will be Doug Burgum as his pick for vice president.
Really?
I think so. He's not running for governor anymore. He and his wife gave a heartfelt goodbye to the good citizens of what? North Dakota?
Yep, North Dakota.
So,
and he couldn't stand himself up.
He's wealthy. He has a lot of wealthy billionaire friends, which DJT loves a lot. Rich folks. So why not? Why not? He supports Trump. He's not scary MAGA. At one point, I was thinking that maybe MTG was going to be his running mate, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
No way, man.
Full MAGA. Full MAGA.
I don't think he'll go for Marjorie Taylor Greene.
No. AOC?
Oh, yeah, now we're talking.
She could rev up a crowd, right? You know?
Oh yeah, she's got herself going, she gets herself all up there. And
if he wants to go real, extreme, Bowman is going to have some time off. So I don't know. I think it's going to be Burgum, and we'll see.
We will see. I'm trying to find.
We got a Scott. We have a Scott. We have a Burgum. You said.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think Burgum makes a lot of sense.
Why don't you say Vivek?
And he was pretty popular among the party.
Actually, I mean, if you want somebody popular in the party, you can always go with Vivek.
And he's not going to take any, of the spotlight away from Trump. Trump likes to own the spotlight, just like Pence was his vice president.
Vivek's always praising him, and I think that all that praise he gets from Vivek, feeds his ego, and I think that's a good thing makes him a stronger leader when he's got his ego stroked.
I would make him. You do make a good point about strong leadership. However, I don't think he'll actually go for it. I think this is my personal theory. Don't know the guy, but I think to Donald Trump, he has nothing to prove to anybody. I think Donald Trump is. I think he already feels, like a great leader because he was the president.
I think if he didn't have to have a vice president, he wouldn't even choose one.
Probably wouldn't, but turns out they're kind of important. Also, at least one of us will be having fun tonight. I have a lot of popcorn with me. I have even more in the kitchen over there. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't think of it. It's going to be a great time. But also, if you're on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube right now and you're watching this, if you look at the pinned comment or whatever the top comment is, it is a link to the presidential bingo card that I made this afternoon. This is kind of like a fun little way for us to. David printed his out. And there we go. Joel just flashed it on screen. For some reason, you want to copy and paste that or type it out manually. You want to do the slow way. It's just some stuff I put together, some hot button issues, some mannerisms of the candidates. And if you want to stay awake, because we're all going to be up here pretty late, this is the great premier way to stay awake tonight. We might get an exciting debate. I will wager we won't. I will wager that it's going to be kind of like that first 2020 debate where it was just like two old men yelling at each other and kind of boring. I would say both campaigns so far have been more boring than they've ever been in the previous. Biden's running a more boring campaign than he ran in 20, and Trump is running, his least exciting campaign with his least exciting rallies of all three of his campaigns. So who knows? Maybe tonight will light the fire and interesting stuff will start to happen. But my personal prediction is that this will be boring as sin. I hope I'm wrong, and that this will come to good use.
I agree. I'm going to put up the bingo card for everyone to see for those individuals who are watching. Let's present that there. I'm going to share my screen.
Heck yeah.
And there she is.
Well, why is yours so big?
Helen.
Why is yours so big? Yours is so big. So let's go over what the card says. One is deep state conspiracy rant. This would be if Biden could do this, but it'll probably be a Trump thing if it happens. Where he talks about how the deep state is controlling the media, controlling economy, whatever. January 6th, I can tell you all with almost guarantee this is going to be a hot button issue for Biden because it's probably the biggest controversy that Trump ever has and probably ever will have. And I bet Trump will bring up the Afghanistan pullout to Biden to criticize him for being putting out a criticism of being a weak leader. Trump brags about his intelligence. It's just something that Trump does. Just one of those things he does often. Wouldn't be surprised if it happened again. The stolen election, I'm going to put him in air quotes, the stolen election is going to come up. Whether it's from Trump or Biden, it's going to come up. The election denial. And I wouldn't be surprised if the hosts ask Trump specifically if he will accept the outcome if Biden wins. That will, of course, be a very interesting response, whatever it ends up being. Ukraine is sure to be a hot button issue. We were talking, the three of us were talking a little bit before now, like what we kind of want to see. Foreign policy is like the main point of interest for me. As far as the economy goes, the onus for our current problems doesn't really lean that hard on the presidents, at least from my view. It lies a lot in the markets right now. So, the foreign policy is where they're really going to have to show how they're different, because a lot of Americans are glad we're intervening. A lot of Americans are very upset that we're intervening. So how they divide the lines will be very, very important. Come on, man. I just want Biden to say, come on, man. That's why I put it on the card. I just want it. Inflation's going to come up. They're both going to blame the other side for inflation. The answer is it was a virus's fault. If we're being completely honest. One of the candidates trails off. I wouldn't be surprised in their collective old age if one of them just trails off in the middle of the sentence. If that happens, the other side, the opponent side, is going to clip that and they're going to make it a big deal. The middle class, they're going to obviously most Americans identify as middle class. Most Americans are not middle class. We're very we're a little bit out of touch with ourselves in that way, I suppose. But they're going to both wrap themselves in that language of being the champion of the middle class. As far as I'm guessing, that's a very likely bingo space. Now you have the free space. This is a 6x6 card, so the free space will move around. And the free space is that Trump will talk with his hands like this, because he always does every time. Every time. It's just the thing he does. Hunter Biden. The Hunter Biden is the Republicans' long-standing kind of sacrificial lamb. It's one of their favorite things to bring up. I think it'll be brought up again. even though they opened an impeachment inquiry and it hasn't gone anywhere, it'll come up.
Yeah.
History has been a weirdly hot button issue within the Republican primary, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Biden campaign wants to capitalize on some of the strange interpretations about the Civil War specifically. And I wouldn't be surprised if, because a lot of Republicans also like to accuse Democrats of revising history to fit their woke agenda. I wouldn't be surprised if that comes up at some point. Is it out of the realm of the president? Probably. Will it come up anyways? Likely. Congress is going to be an elephant in the room, whether they like it or not. This is the least popular Congress ever recorded that we know of.
The least productive.
And least productive. Congress is not doing good right now. And I don't think many Americans will fight me on this. I don't think there are many Americans out there that will fight me on this.
I'm going to jump in there for just a second. When you say Congress, everybody hates Congress, hates it, but everybody loves their congressman. And that's why all 435 will return, except for the ones that get defeated by their own party.
It's a good point, unfortunately. That's the cruel reality. Most incumbents find their way back to office unless there's something catastrophic like we saw with Jamal Bowman. I'm sorry. With $50 million going to his school, that's pretty significant.
He basically just messed himself up.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll see both candidates, I'm sure, blame the other party for the problems facing Congress. It's the Republicans' fault for not working with the Senate. And it's the Senate's fault for not working with the House. Simple as that. Swamp people. I don't know. I'm wondering if Donald Trump will go back to this language. He doesn't use it as much as he used to. And this kind of could fall under the deep state conspiracy rant box.
You can't really talk about the swamp if you swam in it and you didn't fix it.
Yeah. Oh, if he's smart. I don't know if he mentioned it, but I'm curious to see if he will. Mic cutoff. For those of you that don't know, this debate the moderators will have the ability to turn off the microphones. When we reacted to the second Republican primary debate live, I said that they should have the ability to do this, and I'm glad to say CNN is giving it to us. Thank you. I'm excited to see just how often this is used. There's every time the mic cutoff interrupts someone's sentence, take a shot. You might die. You might die tonight.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about it. And I know they already agreed to the debate. But if you go back to the actual moderators, what do you feel about the fact that they've both spoken very negatively and been very anti-Trump? Do you feel like some people say that there's going to be 3 against 1 in this debate? What do you think? I mean, do you think the CNN moderators can be moderators and not, become part of the conversation?
You make a good point. If I can answer first, Kellen, you make a good point. There is a concern of a bias against a bias for Biden, given Tapper and Bash's past comments, and also the rules of this particular debate have been dictated by the Biden camp. So I understand a concern by the Trump camp that there may be some unfairness. And of course, the MAGA Legion have already talked about this, the supporters of Trump and conservatives in general who want a good debate and a fair debate. This has already been, discussed, and it's a legitimate concern. I truly believe that.
Yeah, and it's a very serious concern. We've talked about on our podcast a handful of times about journalists, not giving politicians a fair shake. Mm-hmm. They will obviously be biased. Of course, if they're good moderators, they will understand that their job is to inform the public. So ask more or less the same questions to both candidates, except for the ones that are narrowly tailored. Whether or not that happens, whether or not they are fair, remains to be seen. we'll just have to see. That's definitely a valid concern, and I hope that we don't get that, because that will make even if the Biden campaign isn't behind it, it will still make the campaign look bad anyways. And I think that's a crappy reason for either campaign to look bad, because
Yeah.
the moderators are biased. I think that's a crummy way for either side to get hurt.
A lot of times I look back when Candy Crowley interrupted Romney, and she was actually wrong. She was actually wrong, but it changed the whole dynamics of it, because Romney wasn't prepared to have a comment back to her. He would have had a comment if it had come from his opponent. So that's the only reason I ask. I just wonder how much it'll be just questions. Now, if anybody's not aware, there will be the mics will be turned off, but there'll also be something there that will distort the sound of the person in the other person's mic. So he could be yelling and screaming, and it'll be wah, 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 it'll be just a noise.
It'll be Charlie Brown's mom.
Noise suppressor.
The pre setup, and that's when things they said.
Yeah. I hope that this brings order, especially after following the chaos that were the GOP primaries, especially that second one. The second one was wild. It was buck wild. It was out of hand. So hopefully this will keep it down a little bit, keep this, again, more focused on the candidates. Some other quick things I think will come up. Trump has kind of come out against NATO quite a bit lately. Kind of in the same thing with UN climates, that the idea that the U.S. is putting all of this effort into this and then we're not getting anything out. I'm curious if that will come up tonight or if it won't. Again, I think foreign policy is going to be not the only difference by far, but a very, very, very significant difference between these two candidates. So how they stand with NATO, especially how Trump stands with NATO, could definitely change the dynamics. Again, just going back to things candidates do, we'll probably see a stutter from Biden, and yes, you will probably see it reposted online quite a bit. It's a classic. It's a class act at this point.
One thing I'd love to see, Kellen, is I would love to see, Trump really go after the fact that these same issues that have now turned into conflict and the exit strategy out of Afghanistan. I think that Trump can really focus a lot of attention on the peace that was under his 4 years, and to be able to comment on that the chaos is in this administration. Russia would have never gone into Ukraine if you were a strong leader. I think a lot of that emphasis will come out in foreign policy. And if he's smart, if he's really smart, he'll say, and your boss, Obama, even said, you've never made a good foreign policy decision in your life.
Yeah, he'll definitely want to emphasize his record. He'll want to emphasize his record. But we'll see again how much he does or doesn't. I think if he's smart, he will emphasize his record. Fake news / misinformation, depending on which side of the aisle you're on. It's been a huge concern on both sides about, whether it's lying media, lying candidates, lying supporters, lying whatever. COVID misinformation, COVID free speech suppression. I'm guessing First Amendment will be another thing that really takes the center stage. Do I think that in net there's a very big difference? I will not suspect so. I think both candidates will say that they support free speech and that they don't like it when the other side lies. I don't think it'll be much more interesting than that. Again, we're going to hear a lot about inflation. We're going to hear a lot about gas.
Lexi over here says she wants them to talk about inflation. Thank you, Lexi. Appreciate that. And then will there be any mention of American war crimes against humanity? That's Stony Rivers out there. Any mention of the Assange pardon? So that's some interesting commentary on our list already. So
In my short prediction, I don't think we'll hear anything about that. Both
I
of these
agree.
men have been presidents before. If one of them swings at the other, it's Pandora's box. If Biden hits on Trump for drone warfare, he will strike Biden back with, everything else that he can think of, like namely the Afghanistan pullout. They will both go after each other, and unfortunately, neither of them can possibly stand really on superb ground. War is war is war. You will always be bad for being involved with it as far as the public is concerned. I don't think there's anything they can say to prove otherwise. So I don't think either of them, I think they both have a mutual interest in not emphasizing anything done by any American forces in the Middle East or otherwise. And going back to a couple of quick little mannerisms, I bet one of these candidates or both of them will call the other one aging, which is a valid concern among Americans. And I bet, I'll bet bottom dollar that the moderators will bring this up. They will say, Biden, what about people saying you're too old? Or Trump, they say you're not as spry as you used to be. I'm sure this will come up, and I'm sure we will get the same cookie cutter response from the candidates we always get. Nevertheless, it is on the bingo card. Sleepy Joe, I would think it would be funny if Trump rehashed that line, especially because he has a little bit more ammunition from a couple incidents throughout Biden's presidency. Malarkey, I want Biden to say malarkey. Simple as that. It's malarkey. It's great.
Right.
China will be a cornerstone center point, especially Donald Trump's proposed trade war, which will be something that would hit American consumers particularly
I don't
hard.
understand. I don't understand why you have Bingu.
I don't know. Oh, it's because it's 6x6. They add an extra O. Normally, bingo is 5x5, but
yeah, I understand. But Bingu.
I didn't make the
We'll
site.
just go with it.
I didn't make the site. The site did that, not me.
I'm loving open borders. Calling Trump Russian. I don't know if that's really.
No, I didn't. I try to fit the full sentence. What
And
would likely happen?
And are you going to market? Are you going to market so they know it's been done?
Yes.
Because
So
some of these will be a call, flip of a coin on a call. Like, did he really say? Well, fake news isn't going to be, but candidate called old. What if they don't use the word old, but they say something like, well, you're ancient. I mean, that's old.
It doesn't have to be. None of this has to be verbatim. None of it has to be verbatim. If the
I'm just saying, I want to make sure that we have a fair game, because when I win, I already see my my string right there.
Your path to victory, huh?
And it's not the first O, because the first O with that malarkey just is gone.
Yeah, I think I know where.
Old malarkey just doesn't get it. I just don't see it being said. I've never heard it.
No, Biden said it a number of times during the Democratic primaries in 2020, and he likes to say it on social media sometimes. Just one of those weird things that he talks about. Abortion. Will this be down to the president? No. Will it be a huge point of contention? Yes.
Okay, who's streaming this thing? Because it's all
Joel, could you?
No, we didn't prep that, did we? We have nobody streaming this?
Streaming what?
The debate.
The debate.
No, I took care of the bingo card in this live stream. You guys got the debate.
Oh, okay. So I guess I'll do it.
Then you
from
do
here.
Can you do it from
here?
I'll
get it set up.
Yep, get it set up. I'll continue to yap about what I put up here. Fauci, maybe not directly Fauci, but certainly COVID will be brought up, even though it's old news at this point. It was still a very defining point of contention last time.
COVID's going to come up. You know, COVID's going to come up just because, he's going to talk about job creation, and Trump's going to slam him on that.
And I actually have that elsewhere. The line, I created X number of jobs. The president doesn't create jobs directly. So it's a bit of a funny line. Convicted felon. Biden's going to call him a convicted felon. Just my personal prediction. The Supreme Court, again, I'm not sure the candidates will bring it to the Supreme Court, but I'm guessing the moderators will bring it to the Supreme Court, asking who would they appoint should Thomas, Alito, or Sotomayor retire and or kick the bucket. Who would replace them? I'm guessing that would be asked. I'm guessing that's not something the candidates would want to bring up because it's a boring thing to talk about from the candidate's perspective. But I wouldn't be shocked if the moderators brought it up because they're in the news a lot lately. They've been having a lot of opinions come out this week. And they're on people's mind. I believe in the past, a lot of Democrats, including the Biden campaign, have accused Donald Trump of essentially scamming his supporters as well as the real estate market in that New York civil fraud case. I wouldn't be surprised if that moniker that they like to give him, I wouldn't be shocked if they brought it back. The Colin Trump Russian thing, namely it's accusing Trump of being pro-Russia instead of pro-Ukraine. That's something I see a lot coming from Democrats, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the image that the Biden campaign will want to craft around Trump. That he doesn't support Ukraine, that he supports the Kremlin, and that he supports Putin. Whether or not it's true, it's definitely an image they will want to chase. Israel, Palestine, Gaza will come up at some point, namely aid. How much will be provided? Both candidates, you can agree with this or not, are to a degree pro-Israel. Both sides have committed support, Biden with dollars and Trump in his words, as well as, of course, Trump's standard level of support you saw during his presidency. Another thing about foreign policy being a big hot button issue is
than anything else. So I'm curious to see which
who will want to take the bigger ground on this? Who will want to commit more to Israel or less to Israel? That will color some people's votes. How many? We'll see. But it's pretty important. We got 2 minutes until the intro to the debate. Don't think I have anything else to add. Click the link in the pinned comment. Enter the first comment, and let's enjoy the show. I got popcorn.
Yeah, that's a simulcast. I don't know which one David's going to do, but
for the president and for the former president, issues of democracy, January 6th, and potential issues that he has with the abortion issue. Also, the moderators, how do they handle it? Errol, I know you've moderated a lot of debates too. It's not so.
Stoney, I see you in the comment there, Stoney Rivers. I'm guessing there will be name calling.
Errol, great to see you. Most of the polls
there will be name calling, convicted felon, Sleepy Joe, whatever it is.
Battleground states, Wisconsin, Michigan.
I should have thought of a line counter, but I don't think I could.
In those three battleground states,
I don't think I could keep up with which side is telling the truth live. That could be maybe a fun thing to do in post. See like the different ways they twist the truth, because we will see that without a doubt.
Could decide the election come November.
Okay. And Karina Kling, what will you be looking at in tonight's debate?
Yeah, well, Texas will not be playing host to the first presidential debate because the candidates decided to bypass the presidential.
Okay, we don't need to hear from these clowns.
Yeah. So in about a minute, it'll start, and we will try to make sure that you all can hear the debate, because I don't think many people want to have this open on their phone and watch the debate at the same time, because that would be asinine. But it will be sometimes important for us to say little things during the debate. We're not here to just rebroadcast what is already being produced by CNN. It's not like we have an official license. We are here to add on, analyze, and build upon what is shown to us, provide our opinions. And remember, we are a campaign consulting firm based in Central Florida. Our opinions are our own and not the opinions of our candidates, partners, or anybody else associated with. We are all individuals, and we all have very different political opinions. So just a part of it.
Excellent. Good job, Kellen. Let's roll the intro, and
Trump, go.
We got the simulcast loaded and ready to go.
It's showtime.
And here tonight are the Republican Senator, Vice President Richard.
I served with Jack Kennedy
I knew Jack Kennedy. The Democratic candidate. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
All right.
I'm hyped.
We're here. It's about to get started. I am David Washington, your host, with our other host, Joel Hawksley and Kelly Clark. We are J&W. This is the J&W Network. Let's go.
Well, David, you can't make this shit up. We're about to watch the presidential debate, and we are now flying in to CNN's.
All right, let's unmute this.
Sorry about that, gang. I will unmute it.
How could you? Can't believe this.
Let me get this done.
Will make his case to the American people with just over 4 months until Election Day. Good evening. I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of State of the Union.
I'm Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN's The Lead and co-anchor of State of the Union.
Dana
and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates tonight. Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determined their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
It's Joe. How are you? It's a lot more awkward to wave if there's no audience.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Great to be here today.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
He's not waving at nobody.
There's nobody to wave at. So why would he?
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out another position where
put it on the bingo card. I created X number of jobs.
But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of
price of gas.
That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination that I was left with in corporate greed is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people.
It's not my
For $15
fault.
for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is and we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you, President Trump.
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID.
Open border.
He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you, President Biden.
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he's the greatest economy in the world. And, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we still found ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have any, this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
Not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down and then they bounced back. And he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing. And they didn't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet. the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy.
Turn this light on.
What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's
trillionaires in America? Holy crap!
They in fact pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look,
I like the head twists.
We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Ooh,
well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid
they
people.
don't like us, and we
What
give
we're
them
doing
everything
for
they
other
want.
countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done
Biden's
is
get smoked,
absolutely
David.
criminal.
Thank you, President Trump.
You had a pretty bad opener.
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the
What did
court
I say?
ruled on
Put it
yet
on the
another
video.
abortion case,
Abortion.
temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a
That's the
role
way it
in
should be
whether or
said.
not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with it.
No, they said lack of standing.
And I will
It's not
not
right.
block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders.
Okay.
And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody
Answer the
wanted.
question, Trump.
Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting
Yeah.
into other
Oh, he
things.
did
But
answer the
every
question.
legal scholar
No,
throughout
not the pill
world,
question
the
yet.
most
He's
respected,
He said the
wanted it
Supreme
brought
Court
back
just
to the states.
protected
I
it.
did that.
He
Now the
believes
states
that
are
he
working
answered
it
the
out.
question.
If you look at
Oh,
Ohio,
I get what you're saying,
it was an
but
end
it's
result that was a
technically
little
not
bit
an
more
answer
liberal
considering
than you
that
would have
the
thought.
Supreme Court.
Kansas, I would say the same
It's not
thing.
exactly true.
Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the
What about bounty
states
hunter
control it.
laws?
That's the vote of the
So
people.
basically, he's
Like
saying the
Ronald
states
Reagan,
should
I believe in the
the state right.
exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart.
Would
but
you block
you
the
have to get elected
abortion bill,
also,
bill for
and
Princeton?
because that has to do with other things. You got
He
to
just
get
said
elected.
it was the
The problem
state's
they have
issue.
is they're radical because they will
No.
take the life of a
He just
child
needs to
in
say
the
no.
8th month, the 9th
He's
month, and even
implying, but he
after
hasn't
He
birth.
just
said it.
wants
After
you to
birth.
say
If you
no,
look
but
at the
he's
governor
now
of
a
Virginia,
politician. He
he
doesn't
was
say
willing
no.
to
You
do
don't.
this.
You know
He
that.
said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe.
It was,
And that's this
it was
idea
very
that they're all
controversial.
against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who
Both their
says the
claims are
state should
messed
be
up.
able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about
What?
that. But
What does that
here's
to
the
do with
deal.
anything?
There's a lot of young
What does
women
that
being
do with
raped
anything?
by their in-laws, by their spouses.
This has nothing to do
Brothers
with
and
anything.
sisters.
Biden, what the fuck?
I
It's just
told you.
ridiculous. And they can do nothing about it.
Senile
And they
as
try to
hell.
arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been
Oh,
many young women
cut
murdered
him off.
by
Yeah.
the same people he allows to come
You're
across our
right.
border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. Consider the most dangerous place anywhere in the world.
I don't think
And
that's
he
true.
opened it up, and these killers are coming into
I
our
think that's
country,
Gaza.
and they are raping and
Have you ever been
killing
to the border?
women.
I have.
And it's a terrible thing. As far as
I
the abortion is
was at the
concerned,
border,
it is now
not
back
recently,
with the
but I
states. The
was at
states
one
are
point.
voting.
Only one
And
time.
in many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't.
Whoa.
But they would have.
You can't love the
Everybody
founders.
wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First time is between
That
the woman
wasn't
and the doctor.
the case. He
Second
changed
time
that.
is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
How are you going to restore
He
it?
can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen.
Didn't he just say
Democrat or
that he,
Republican, nobody wants it to
supported a
happen.
third trimester general
That is
cap?
simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
The Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. you can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want.
That's not
We
what
don't
the
think that's a
opinion
good
says in
thing. We
Roe.
think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy,
You heard a lot of
very
written
conservative
into the
members on the
Constitution.
Supreme Court, he takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? In fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security.
Yeah.
President
Biden was a little bit more coherent in that
migrants have
response. He
illegally
had a very
crossed the
bad
southern
start, very
border on your
raspy.
watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position.
Okay.
In addition to that, we found
You gotta
ourselves in a
point out that
situation
Trump
where
was one who
when
didn't
he was
want it.
president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere, all over the world, they're pouring in.
Most of our
This guy
terrorists are
just
homegrown.
left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in and his administration, kill 3 American soldiers. Kill 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people. That's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating. He's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime.
This is where
they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and They just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all. And he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living one next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
Wow. First of all, that was a made-up quote.
Yeah, that was aggressive.
They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like
I
many
thought
of
this
these
was
magazines.
about immigration.
He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. Think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taking better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter.
I almost have a bingo.
Disinformation.
I'm only one stolen election away.
He should apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. I'm pretty sure every president claims this. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right. Thank you so much.
Topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its 3rd year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them.
Of both of them.
And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost. but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he
talked to him
never would
about
have
it.
invaded.
You had information?
Just like Israel would have
That's
never been
interesting.
invaded.
So he knew
in
this
a
was
million
going to
years
happen
by
the way he's
Hamas.
talking.
You know why?
That's
Because
interesting.
Iran was broke.
We all
and
knew it was going
I
to
wouldn't
happen.
let anybody do business
yeah,
with them. They
I
ran
think
out
there
of
was a lot
money.
of
They
reasons
were broke.
not to
They had no
happen
money
into
for
his
Hamas.
watch.
They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my
No
administration.
terror at all.
This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
President Biden?
Oh,
Never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter
Malarkey.
is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last.
Take that, Joel. I told you.
Iran attacked American troops.
Yes.
Caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did.
Wait, when was this?
Encourage him. Do whatever you want.
A lot of revelations tonight.
Oh my
goodness.
He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish.
There's a lot of revisionist history going on.
At all. He didn't,
and no one's really answering the questions.
Lost over,
just kind of pissing over each other.
All people actors were the
President
Putin
Trump,
term
I never said that. For 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th.
He's back on
that
this.
war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly.
October surprise.
I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries?
So what do you do?
If you want a war,
Never been
find out what he's going to do. Because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way,
plans
all
from
that money we
Belarus
give
and
Ukraine,
that they also plan to invade Moldova.
Give them the weapons.
So they plan to invade two places, but they're stuck on
our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In
That's
October,
right, Stoney. You
Hamas
can't make this
attacked
shit
Israel,
up.
killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden,
in other news,
put forward
I'm going to go get some popcorn
to resolve this conflict. But so far, Hamas has not released the
I'm
remaining
surprised,
hostages,
David,
and Israel
that you
is
never
continuing
drink.
its
This is
military
so-
offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire.
By the way,
Second phase is
Israel
ceasefire
on
with
your bingo
additional
cards,
conditions.
everybody.
The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened in Israel? We're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so there are two different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any, they were going out of business.
On your bingo cards.
Almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting you got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
Okay, well,
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. Are you going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. You see what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see. But before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this. I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia? Had a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time. And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world.
Founding of the country.
All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor in writing turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, you can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Never heard that one.
Look, he
I want to
encouraged
talk
those
about that
folks
more.
up in Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. He went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He didn't do a damn thing.
I don't have an opinion for
and these
January
people should
6th
be in
yet.
jail, and they should be the ones who are
We
being
only got
held
one for
accountable.
2 of them.
And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden.
You
President
don't have Weiner on there, do you?
They've done to some people that are so innocent. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities.
You know Biden did BLM
Minneapolis,
by himself.
what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing, the Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed.
Yeah,
all of
Lexi,
the
I'm going to go
information.
over
They should go to jail
some
for
of these
that.
things. In
If
fact,
a
it's some of
Republican
them.
did that, they go to
Thank
jail.
you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person in
This
this
is
stage is a
entertaining, though,
convicted
this
felon
section.
is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the select committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight.
Sir.
Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor.
For bad policy?
Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor, having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said—
You should have put that on the bingo card.
Well, you want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one.
Yeah,
number
you did.
two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases out
right there.
He's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him, they said, what do you think of those people? The ones who got killed. the one who tried to stop it and the ones he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say Nazis coming out of fields, carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people? This is the guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency is, without question, the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every anchor has, every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time.
The rally
the
did.
idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran.
The whole
I
sentence.
ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Yeah, we may have missed a call. Okay, a lot to unpack there. Start us off, Joel.
I do think Biden is getting beat right now. I do think that, but I do believe that Biden's finally got under his skin, or Tapper or somebody's gotten under his skin because his demeanor's changed.
Yeah.
When he was calm, when he was cool, when he was collected, he truly made sense. He truly, had his faculties. And I think he's talking about the kitchen table issues in the fact that how people are feeling. Okay, we do a lot of this talk about facts and feelings. The feeling that America is having right now is they're struggling. No matter how the numbers are working, he's struggling. And people are struggling and they want relief. And when you say that his economy wasn't good, it was phenomenal.
Exactly
the economy
true.
was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now, the spending, if you take the spending that he had to do for the COVID vaccines and all the spending he had to do to keep paying people that weren't working, he talks about bounce back jobs, which is really critical in this conversation about the economy and those job growth. I think when Trump is actually on the issues, it's great. But when it comes to being insulted and then rushing to, say that it's debunked or this, he should just let it go. He should let that go and just talk about the economy, talk about how people are feeling, talk about, you know what, you can say whatever you want. My economy was good. People were working one job, financing their homes. There was, the inflation and everything else was driven up. And I think the comment about how many more deaths there were under the under the Biden administration makes a good point, because it didn't just disappear. He took over and there was still quite a few more deaths. So I think David, will have, some good points, because now Biden's not, I wish he would finish some of his sentences.
Yeah.
Well, he does have a thought, he loses, and then all of a sudden it's crazy.
Right.
And he was making a really good point on one thing, and all of a sudden I thought,
and then you have a stammer.
This is not his best tonight. It's just not his best tonight.
This is weak.
And before they cut back to the debate, both performances are crap. To be honest, no one's answering the questions. They're going back and talking about one another, what they did do, what they failed to do, what they should have done. They're
what they will do.
Each other's performance, and of course that's going to happen. But for God's sakes, answer the question. Tell me what you plan to do about inflation. I'm taking some notes here, and I'm not getting the type of answers that I thought we would get. Particularly, straightforward answers. The abortion pill, for instance.
Will you
are
really
you
not?
going to stop the abortion pill, mifepristone? And no one really answered that. And it's I'll talk about Biden. He came out very weak, and he stammered. I was hoping to see a performance like he did at the State of the Union.
Yeah.
And again, I did not. I had to pull in my notes. I just had to pull some of these answers out, and it was just crazy. Okay, I think they're back now.
Yeah, we'll go back. I'll give my thoughts next time. I've quite a few.
We're providing housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses.
Oh, Lord.
In addition to that, we find that the impact on
he's showing his age. He
is showing his age. Unfortunately,
Black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for childcare costs. We got to make sure because when you provide those childcare protections, you increase economic.
How about better jobs so that two people would not have to work?
There's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a
better
great deal
jobs,
so far,
better
and I'm
pay,
not
so
letting up, and they know
one
it.
parent can stay
We
at
have
home.
49 seconds left.
The government can only do so much by just working on the back end, right?
I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any Black family first-time home buyer should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those Black families and those Black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for Black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation.
Whoa.
And he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's
Powerful
killing
statement.
Black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled, and tripled, and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect.
Bullshit.
It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone.
No, there is
He
inflation.
destroyed it with his Green New Scam and all of the other
practically
all
no
this
inflation.
money that's being thrown out the window.
In
He caused
2019,
inflation.
by
As sure as
2020,
you're sitting there,
specifically,
the
in the
fact
few months
is
leading
that
into the
his
election, the
big
inflation had picked
kill
up.
I'm going to
Black
mute
people
you on that
is the
one.
millions of people that he's
Oh,
allowed to come in through
okay.
the border. They're taking Black
fact check
jobs now,
myself.
and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking Black
Always
jobs,
inflation.
and they're taking
Always
Hispanic jobs. And
I
you
mean,
haven't
there's
seen
always
it yet,
inflation.
but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden.
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was
What?
flat on its back.
What?
50% unemployment. He
What?
decimated the economy.
What the hell did Biden just say?
That's why there was no inflation.
What?
There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority
But we're not
communities.
in there, so
We
we're
made
not
sure that they have
making
health
any noise.
insurance. We have covered. The ACA
No,
has
we are
increased.
taking
I made
that.
sure that they're
That laugh is not there.
$8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot
crap.
to make it. There's
You
a
said
lot
it.
going
You said
on.
equity.
But in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank
But
you.
didn't say-
Another persistent challenge
Didn't
is the
understand.
climate crisis. 2023
You're
was the
making a good
hottest
point.
year
Lexi
in
in our
recorded
audience
history
just
in
mentioned that
communities.
Climate crisis.
Biden accidentally saying that there was no inflation when he took
intensifying
office.
wildfires, stronger
Almost
hurricanes, and
might
rising
appear
sea
like
levels.
he blamed
Former
he
himself.
President
did.
Trump,
Well,
you
I'm saying
vowed
it.
to end your
He said there was no
opponent's
inflation when he
climate
took over.
initiatives,
He
but
did.
Will you
He
take
did. He
any
did say that.
action as president to slow the
I don't know what
climate
the hell that was
crisis?
all
Let me
about.
just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his term, and he called it to them. And they've taken great offense at it. And now they see it happening.
Him and Hillary.
They see what I did for
He
criminal
went
justice
there. He
reform
went
at the
there.
historically black
Then when Obama
colleges and
came around, they
universities,
changed their
where I
minds.
funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones
Well,
with
damn it,
Tim,
we're
as
not
you
in
know,
there
Tim
making
Scott
some
was
noise.
incredible. He did a great job. Great senator from South Carolina.
Whoa,
He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful
Agreed,
economic
Lexi.
development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black
male
people. He's also
population.
done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started,
What jobs?
and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air. And we had
Okay.
it.
I don't think
We
that's
had
going to happen.
H2O. We had the
By
best
drilling
numbers
and
ever.
using fossil
And we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people
I believe
gave me
our
that
best
statistic
environmental
just
numbers
before I
ever
walked on the
was when our
stage.
country was young, I believe.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history.
You stuck
We
us
find
with
ourselves,
more
by the way,
regulation than we can
black
handle.
colleges. I came up with $15 billion for
Is the market
HBCUs,
gonna
historic
fix it?
black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, where there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We're not able. The United States can't
have to be part of something. Just to
one
get
of the
something
largest polluters in the world. Number one, we're making significant progress.
That's true.
By
If you
2030,
actually
number one polluters in the world.
now, we have made,
China
made
is
significant progress.
We're still in the top
continuing to
three,
make progress.
unfortunately.
We
for
set up a
us.
climate corps.
And China doesn't have the
Thousands of
same
young people will learn how to deal with them, just like
No.
the Peace Corps.
in the
And
Paris
we're
Accord.
we're
But then
moving in
there's also the
directions that are
question
going to
of, you know,
significantly change the
how
elements
much
of
that
cause
actually
pollution.
matters, and whether it's
But
about
the
parents, whether
idea
it's just about
that he claims that
getting the
he has
policy
the biggest
done.
heart up here, and he's really
Kind of-
concerned about
I guess it's just kind of a
pollution
matter of
and about
priorities.
climate.
The way I
I've not
see it.
seen any
Well,
indication.
wait till we get a carbon
And by
tax.
the way,
That's the
with
next thing this
regard
guy
to
wants to do.
prescription drugs,
And how do you
one
measure
company
carbon?
agreed that they would.
I mean, we already
reduce the
have,
price to $35, which I was calling for.
some
one,
forms of that already.
voluntarily. I made sure
Been a thing for a
every
while.
company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
She said, thank
So
you.
every
Can
day,
you give me more
millions of
time?
Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will
Yep.
you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now,
We're back
anybody
to-
making under $170,000 pays 6%
Yeah.
of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one. They
Social
get
Security
from
is
18
by
years
far
old.
the largest,
The idea
well, not
that they're
by
going to,
super
I'm
far,
not
but it is the largest
proposing that
part of our
everybody, they
national
pay
budget.
the millionaires pay 1%.
Military is.
1%. So
And I
no
believe
one
it's
after,
Social Security
I
these
would not
days.
raise the
Military
cost
is.
of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the
National
biggest thing
defense
it'll
is
do
number
if we defeat
5,
this man,
Joel.
because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's
Social
plenty
Security
to
is
cut in
number 1,
Social
Medicare
Security.
is number
He's wanting
2,
to cut
net
Social
interest
Security and Medicare
is number
both
3,
times. And that's-
healthcare is
and
number
if you look
4,
at the
military is
programs
number
put forward
5.
by the House Republican caucus that he, I believe, supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care
Joe Biden
coverage
should
today
have
than ever before.
interest in protecting
And
the
under the
seniors.
ACA, as I
Right?
said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing
It's not
condition.
fair to put
Only thing
Social
allows them
Security.
to
Social
have that
Security is not
insurance
part of the
is the
actual
fact
budget.
that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing
Pay
is
into it
we're in a
different.
situation where we talk about education for
Yes.
Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell
Oh, I
Grants,
forgot.
another
The
$8,000.
Obama
Anybody
decided to make
making under
healthcare an issue.
$70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000
now
towards their tuition.
Put more money in it.
He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine.
Answer the
Everything
question
he
about
does is
Social
a lie.
Security.
It's misinformation and disinformation.
Thank you.
The
He said
losers and
miss-
sucker
come on,
story
say
that he
fake
made
news.
up
Put
is
it
a
on the
total
card,
lie
man.
on the military.
Well, if he
It's a
doesn't answer
disgrace.
the answer,
But Social Security,
talk over him. So
he's
we won't have
destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing. And
what luxury?
And you want to
coming
destroy
back,
Social
I've never
Security.
seen such anger
What
in our country
luxury
before.
hotels?
President Biden.
The idea veterans are not being taken care of. I told
I
you
couldn't even
before.
afford
By
a
the way, when I said
a
suckers
hovel
and
in New
losers,
York, let alone a
he
luxury
acknowledged
hotel.
after that he fired that
And
general.
he would have to get travel all
That
the way
general
there.
got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any
Get
other
back to
nation in
Social
the world.
Security.
And by the way,
Social
those
Security.
15
Nail
Nobel
him on
laureates he
Social
talks about being
Security.
phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
Which is
President Biden, thank
probably,
you so much.
I
Let's
would
turn to
say,
the
is
cost
still
of
wrong.
child
It's
care, which many American
Buchanan.
families struggle to
I
afford.
would say
President
Buchanan and
Trump, both you
Johnson
and President
are
Biden
both shittier than
have
Trump
tried
at
to
the
address
very
this issue.
least, even if you
But the
think Trump
average
is
cost
bad.
of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For
And
many
since you bias,
families,
I think.
the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go
Better
back,
job so
the general got
a
fired
parent can
because he
stay
was no
home
good.
and raise their
And if
own
he said that,
kids.
that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is,
Raise your kid at
he
home.
doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at
He
the
did fire
FBI
a lot.
in the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they
Swamp.
were no good. I
Oh my
inherited
God,
these
Trevino
people. I didn't put him
cards.
there. I didn't put
It's
Comey
Swamp.
there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never
Oh,
fired.
and Hunter Biden. I forgot
He
about that
should have
earlier.
fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
Give it
He
a
didn't
rest.
fire.
You
Did
already
you
said
fire
it.
anybody? Did you fire
None of
anybody
that
that's on
happens.
the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing
For
18 million
goodness
people,
sakes.
many from prisons,
Isn't it Border
many
Patrol's fault that they
from
don't have the
mental
funding they used
institutions?
to?
Did
Is
you
it Border
fire
Patrol's
anybody
fault
that
that
allowed our country to be
the
destroyed?
policy changed?
Joe,
If you're
our
going to fire
country
someone,
is
you
being
fire the
destroyed as
legislature.
you and I sit up here and waste a lot of
You're
time on
muted,
this
Joel.
debate. This
Joel,
shouldn't
you're
be a
muted.
debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it.
There we go.
Both are the worst.
The
He's the
head
worst president in the
of
history of our country. He's
our border
destroyed our
security
country.
because
Now all of a
he
sudden he's trying to
disagreed
get a little
on the
tough on
border
the border. He
policy of
came
letting
out with
everybody in.
a nothing
So
deal, and it
unfortunately, I
reduced
will
it a little
say
bit.
that our
A little
president
bit,
is
like this much. It's
not
insignificant.
actually
He
remembering
wants
that one
open
of the
borders.
best
He
people
wants our
in the border
country to
security
either
was
be
fired by
destroyed
this
or he wants to pick up those people as
Okay.
voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world.
Oh my
We're the
goodness.
United
It's
States of
hyperbole.
America. There's
Get
nothing
to the
beyond our capacity.
freaking question.
We're the finest military in the history of the world. The finest in the history of the world.
Do. I would
No one
say
thinks
we
we're weak.
probably do have the
No
best
one
military in the
wants to
world,
screw
though.
around with us. Nobody.
In all
There,
fairness.
someone I know
Number two,
how
the
we can
idea
get better
that we're
jobs
talking about
so
worst
a parent
presidents.
can
I
stay
wasn't
home and
joking.
raise
Right
their
on.
Look it
kid
up. Go online.
and not have to, work
159 or
2,
58,
4,
don't hold me the exact number.
5 different jobs
Presidential
just to make
historians. They've
it
had
by
meetings
him.
and they voted.
Well,
and pay
the
for
worst
childcare, pay for
president in
medication.
I don't
history.
think
Won from
neither of
best
them
to
have
worst.
a plan
They
that
said
could
he was
actually
the worst in
realistically do
all
that, especially
of
not on a
American
federal
history.
level.
That's a fact.
I mean, how
That's
much of
not-
that
that's
is
not
state
conjecture.
policy
You
as
can
well
argue
that would
with me.
actually reasonably
They
have
voted.
more effect?
The idea that he
Better
was
paying
really
jobs,
doing
invest
anything to
in
deal
better
with
paying jobs
childcare.
that don't
He
necessarily
did very
mean,
for virtually
you know,
nothing
having
for
a
childcare.
college
We should
education,
significantly
a
increase the
vocational
childcare tax
education,
credit. We should
or go to
significantly
the
increase the
military.
availability of
Yeah.
women and men.
And those are
free
both great
parents
routes
to be
these
able to go
days.
back to work,
Vocations pay a
and we
lot.
should encourage businesses to have
Thank you, President
childcare
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make childcare more affordable, if you want to take 2 minutes.
Yes,
You understand?
please.
Yes, there we go. There we
We
go.
have other
Yes,
things
sir.
that
There we
They
go.
rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And If I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best.
I've seen
Nobody's
the thing
ever
Biden's talking about. I think
created an
historians walk
economy
the walk.
like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us.
But
He's
Trump's
the only one I
full
know.
of
He
crap
wants
here.
to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise
You wanna raise
everybody's taxes
imports by 4
by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire.
Yes.
So everybody, including the 2 of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see
The
politicians
Trump
talking
tax
about
cuts
cutting
were
taxes.
too
When we
expensive
cut taxes, as
and
I
top
said,
heavy.
we did more
No,
business.
I
Apple
disagree.
and
They
all
were
these
very top
companies,
heavy.
they
That
were
was the
bringing
only
I
money
did.
back into our
Trickle
country.
down
The
economics
worst
works, and
president in
it's going
history
to
by
continue
far.
to work.
Everybody
And you
knows it.
guys
The
can
only
just
thing that
President Biden?
trickles down
The
is
fact of the
pee.
matter is that he's dead wrong
printing
about
money
he's increased
creates
tariff. He's increased.
deficits.
He
It
will increase
creates
the
And I agree on that.
taxes on middle
inflation,
class
and
people.
that's
I
all
said
this
I'd never
president
raise the
right
tax
now
on
does.
anybody making less than
So
$400,000.
that tax
I
cut
didn't.
worked.
This
Our
tariff is
economy was
10% tariffs.
running
Everything
on
coming into the country. You know what the
petrol.
economists say? That's
It
going
was
to cost
Explain
the
that
average
to the
American
generations that have to pay for the
$2,500
huge
a year more
budget
because they're going to have to
deficits
pay
that
the
we're
difference in
collecting.
food and
Look,
all the things that were imported.
if
Number
you
two,
give,
he's
if
in
you
a situation
give a
where
bit
he
more,
talks
and
about
the
how
most
he has
expensive thing is
not raised,
hiring people.
he's
That's
somehow
those tax
helped
cuts
the
work.
middle class. Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion
The middle
over the next
class.
10
You
years,
said it. Bingo
which is going to
cards. Middle
fundamentally
class.
bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are at the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
were at the
President Biden.
highest. You lost
Thank you,
on
President
Why
Biden.
did you
Let's
do
let's
anything for
discuss
China?
You're the
pandemic
President
impact on
Biden. You
millions of
can't be
Americans
doing
that both
that.
of you have made a top priority in your first term.
Still
The
need to wish
opioid
you better
crisis. And
candidates
for
than
both
these.
of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has
President will
gone up.
stop all drugs. I
President
believe in
Trump,
him.
despite the efforts that both of you
Whoever
have
he
made,
is.
more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids.
No.
What will you do to help Americans?
We're back
right
on the
now
border.
in the throes
Secure the
of
border.
addiction who
I'm
are
about to say we're back on the border immediately. Even though
We now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China.
Biden played himself.
He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money
Wow.
from China.
What?
Wow.
What?
You notice he never took out my tariffs.
Manchurian
He made so
candidate.
much money with the tariffs.
Pot
that I
calling
imposed
the
on
kettle
China.
black.
He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country.
You're
They are
terrorists,
killing us
Trump.
as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way.
Good Lord, this
And then we
No,
had
a
to
lot
get
of
tough.
countries
And
had
it
a
was
lot of
the drugs
drugs.
pouring
It's
across the
common.
border it started to increase. We got great equipment.
much
We
of it
bought
comes
the
from
certain
China? How
dog
much of
that's
it
the
comes
most
from
incredible
Asia?
thing
I
that
mean,
you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We
can't
did a
blame
lot.
everything on
And
Mexico.
we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways, but the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about
Shockingly
Americans in the
cohesive
throes of
and
addiction
sensible
right now,
answer from
struggling to
Biden.
get the treatment they need.
Okay.
Well, because this does pertain to it. He ended remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage, we always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say
$6 billion
now
for
we
a
have
hostage.
a Wall Street Journal reporter.
It's the going rate.
I think a good
Really?
guy.
$6 billion? If I was
He's
million.
over there because Putin is laughing at
I'm
this.
kidding.
They're probably asking for
I said,
billions
no
of dollars.
fucking way.
For
David,
the
I'm
reporter.
taking your
I will
hostage.
have him out very quickly.
Okay,
Before I
look.
take office, I
$6
said
billion.
literally.
Look,
As soon
how
as
about
I win
this?
the election,
You guys can
I
take
will
me
have that
hostage,
reporter
and we'll
out.
split the
He should have
profits.
had him out
Okay?
a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for
David,
billions and
We'll
billions
meet up in
of dollars
Tahiti with
because
new
this guy takes
faces.
it every time.
Maybe if we were
paid
like,
$6 billion
our names were Brittany.
I got 58 people
Griner.
out, and I paid essentially nothing.
We take that $6 billion.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Reconstructive
Let's
surgery,
turn to
the most
concerns
advanced
that
you've ever
voters
seen,
have about each of
and we
you.
live on a tropical
President
island
Biden, you
and
would
just
be
sip
86
martinis on the beach the rest of
at
our
the
life
end of your second term.
for $6 billion
How do you address
for a
concerns
hostage.
about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
That is
First of
age
all,
that is on the
spent
card.
half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate.
Yes, you've been
And now
here
I'm the oldest.
9
This
million
guy's
years.
3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America.
Not impressive now, sir.
Billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that
Impressive
we
back in
are
the day,
growing.
Barry, not as much anymore.
By the way, we brought off a lot of people. Well,
I wonder why
He's not
they
the
answering
whole
my
idea.
question.
I wonder why they
Chips, we
didn't
used to have
ask
40% of the market.
who's running the
We
country.
invented those chips,
You know,
and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and then bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States.
There better be a
And
point of this.
guess
or I
what?
swear to God.
Those fabs they call that to build these chips. Those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college
Wait, now
degree
we're talking
for
about
them.
chips.
And there's
I mean, chips is a good
about
act
$40
and all,
billion
but
already being invested and being
the
built
question.
right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Like, name me a single
Envy of the
major
world depends on where
country
you
president
live.
who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things
That's
done.
true.
We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies,
Not true.
and those who he cuddles up to, from Kim Jong Un, he sends love letters to,
Love the
Putin,
face.
etc. They
Don.
don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it
You
public.
aced
He
an
took
IQ
one. I'd like to
test?
see him
It's a
take
fucking
one, just one,
genius.
a real easy one.
cognitive test.
Like go through the
Shut
first
up,
5 questions.
people.
He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long
Trump
way.
brags about his intelligence. Get to your cards, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my goodness! Is this what we're left with?
I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably
Definitely
a little
not
bit lighter,
true.
but I'm in as
Definitely
good a
not
shape as I
true.
was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a
Yeah, you're
cognitive
definitely
test.
worse.
And you know what? If I didn't do
You
well, I
really are.
aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House
Ronnie
doctor. And then I took another
Jackson.
one, a similar one.
Congressman Jackson,
And
my
one of
friend.
them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
I'm the smartest guy
He
they'd ever
said he
met.
is 6'5" and only 223 pounds or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president.
Driving contest for the presidency. I'll take that over democracy.
Well, by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag.
Oh!
It's a 6 handicap of all.
I was at 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you.
Now
swing.
we're talking about
We're
golf.
talking about
games?
President Trump specific concerns members have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who
Here we
wins?
go. I said this would come up.
You will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable.
Say it.
And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and the President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
Now the election.
It can only be in a proxy war for so long.
Let him follow and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of
Not this again.
Finish what he said, if I might.
There we go.
Russia.
Let me avoid this question. Let me avoid this question.
Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me.
True. I agree.
And he's going to take Ukraine.
What about terminal?
And, you asked me a question before. Would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question
going
was,
to the
will you
nightclubs
accept
in
the
downtown
results of the
Kev.
election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was
Stolen election.
ridiculous.
Oh
and if you
my
want, we'll have a
God.
news
Stolen election,
conference on it
everybody.
in a
What are your
week,
cards?
or we'll have
Yep,
another one of
that's
these
right.
in
Get
a
it
week.
in. Election
But
denial.
I will absolutely. There's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else in a nice location someplace. And again,
A
no
jail cell.
indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven
Answer
them
the
up to a very
question,
high
Trump.
level because the people understand it.
He did at least
Let's see what
kind
your
of
numbers
try,
are
maybe.
when this election is
Not
over.
answer.
He
Let's
said
see.
he's
You're a
only
whiner. When you lost the first
Right.
time, you continued, you appealed and appealed. The
Then
courts all
define
across the country.
resolved, you know?
Not
Like,
one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state
true.
or local, none. But you continue to provoke
That's
this
right.
lie about somehow
Dead
there's
on.
all this
No
misrepresentation,
fraud.
all this stealing.
Except out of the
There's
villages.
no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner.
Ooh.
The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
I just
We'll
like
be
watching
right back
Trump's weird facial
with
expressions.
more
It's actually
from
kind
the
of
CNN presidential debate
entertaining for me.
live from Georgia.
God, there's more. There's more.
Unfortunately, there's more. Okay, I'm going to get my thoughts on this time because I didn't get to last time.
Let me add this one piece about the economy. The economy has never been stronger. It's the feelings that people are having that the economy is not good for them. Depending on your own personal situation, the economy may or may not be good. That's your own independent situation. There are things that you can do or cannot do to make your own kitchen table issues when it comes to your own finances better.
And
So I just want to put it out there.
100%, and I'll agree with you 100%. And I say, vote for Donald Trump if you want to fix those kitchen table issues, because you'll feel better, because the economy will be better, because people will have energy to invest in our country and not invest in these things that don't help reduce the inflation. I'm sorry, David. I can't understand how this president can have such great economic numbers and still have people losing their homes, losing their they can't afford to feed themselves. So much going on. You have so much homelessness now. We have unaffordable homes, housing. Why is this not something that is being addressed in national level? See, this is why we talk, David, about local issues, because we're talking about gas prices. We're talking about all these things. Yeah. It's okay. Gas prices aren't controlled by the president when it's low. When it's low, but when it's high, look, it is. The economy sucks because if you can't afford to buy your groceries, you can't afford to buy the things you need, you can't afford diapers, you can't afford those necessities, then I'm sorry. Biden has not made anybody feel good, and it's because they're struggling. This is like Seminole County losing 1 cent.
All right. Okay.
I'll quickly jump in. I will be a bit more cynical about the president's role in the economy. I will say that it is not very strong, and I think that's both for credit and for failing. Ultimately, David's right that the economy is on paper one of the best it's ever been. People feel bad. People feel bad because of how much of that economy went to the top heavy. It has not trickled down.
No. Let him finish, Joel. Let him finish.
Because
let him finish.
Now, long term, it is expected long term that that money will trickle down. It just hasn't happened yet. And sometimes that takes time. When there's periods of inflation, you usually have a year or two, sometimes more, where you have these these inequalities because cost of living adjustments have not caught up yet. It is a typical thing. I mean, granted, this is a particularly bad bout, this is a particularly bad inflation, but and I would like to, and I will say, like, I'll just quickly give my quick thoughts on this. But I think both candidates are screwing up majorly. I don't know why
I would disagree on that. Like I think David and I we will both agree on that one. So
yeah, they're both screwing up. I think Biden's making a mistake by pointing out the struggles of now. Even if he's still trying to blame it on Trump, it's looking like he's blaming it on himself. It's very foolish, and he's struggling to hammer home the bipartisan border deal.
They're back.
Are we back?
We have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said
it's not.
Nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400.
Okay,
no more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal deficit.
Biden's not using his strongest weapons against Trump.
$160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along. It's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care.
No, more.
Lead pipes.
Better jobs.
Causing health problems.
I'm going to bribe you. I'm going to give you child care.
Throwing money at the situation is
all these things. The situation. The only reason you're voting for me is because I'm going to give.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
That was a short segment.
That was the closing statements.
Yeah. I'll quickly give some thoughts. I say quick, but I don't mean quick. So ultimately, a lot of politicians, they like to peddle the idea that the other side is perpetuating some huge orchestrated thing, and sometimes there's a great truth to that. But it's always something like the immigrants are here to replace us. The right wants to get rid of democracy. Your speech isn't free. You're being manipulated. We like to go for these big lies, but really, what we often see is a lot of small lies. And I just want to point out some that we heard in this debate, because there was a lot from both. I'll start with Roe v. Wade, for example. And this goes to a huge issue of straw manning that we saw from both candidates. They both did the same. Trump said everybody, without exception, he used the words without exception, wanted the abortion issue returned back to the states. The issue was more divisive than that. Biden said, prior to Dobbs, that legal analysts were pretty much fully in agreement that, that Roe was the way to go. It wasn't. There was a lot of lawyers who took issue with Roe because they thought the trimester rule was arbitrary. And because that was arbitrary, it could have opened Pandora's box to more judicial activism. There were a lot of people who disagreed with it for that reason. Again, both of them completely twisted the history of that to fit their narrative.
Period.
Yeah, it's the and that's quite common. Here's another interesting little tidbit. I pulled up certain bits of a couple parts that really piqued my interest. One of it was Trump talking about how environmentally friendly it is, that his environmental numbers were the best ever. I don't know what the fuck numbers he's looking at. No. What would have changed within 4 years? Most environmental policy takes more than 5 to work, period. So if it did, first off, you'd be giving it to Obama.
I'll interrupt you on that just because what he should have said and what he said are a little bit different. Our actual carbon footprint went down, even though we brought more fuel from our country. So yes, he's correct, but the way he said it, I'll agree with you. But I want to make sure you realize we went lower than
carbon went lower.
The actual France, the French agreement.
Yes, and the carbon did go down, but he said every metric. And the thing he liked to point out was immaculately clean air and water. Which presidential administration of the past 4 was the only one to scale back clean water legislation? There was one, and that was his. Him saying that he was like an authority on clean water. It has been ages. I think the last time we saw this was with
it was Democrats. I think it was. We have to be clear when we had Flint and all this other stuff. So
we have to be clear that Trump exaggerates. Everything
is exaggerated.
Trump.
That's true.
Everything's good. Everything's rosy. He's the best. And so when he talks, it's this garbage. And you have to, like what we're doing right now, we have to, weed through the garbage to get to the truth.
Yeah. Or here's another thing: the migrants. He said that migrants were killing.
There's always some truth.
Yes.
It's exaggerated.
And just say it. Trump should just say it instead of,
he doesn't focus on the details. He
doesn't even focus on the question. I'm taking notes
here. Neither one of them actually do the question.
Exactly. Neither one of them.
You might as well not even have anybody.
I have more garbage to dig through. Another one. He claimed that Donald Trump, he being Trump, claimed that hundreds of thousands of Americans were getting killed by migrants. We don't even have 100,000 that get killed a year. And he was saying that hundreds of thousands, plural, were being killed by migrants alone. And I mean, yes, and you're right, Joel. There is a grain of truth to it. Some migrants do kill people. This is well known. But what's the goddamn point in claiming? How much is? Let's just say 200,000. How many?
40,000 children are killed every year because of gun violence. Because of gun violence, and we did not even hear that.
Immigrant.
We did not even hear that.
Immigrant.
There's a gun epidemic out there, and we did not even hear anything close to that.
I can't even hear what Trump is saying right now. So I think we need to get back to where we.
Oh shit!
No, this is C-SPAN. No.
Oh,
This is a diversion. Stop diverting here. No, the fact is, Trump continues to exaggerate, and unfortunately, Americans and other people don't weed through the garbage. They don't take their time to weed through the garbage from both of these candidates and find out what the truth is. That's why we're here, to get through the garbage and analyze this and tell Americans this was a shit debate, and now people have to go back and go and do their own damn research. But 40,000 children die every year because of gun violence, and that wasn't even discussed.
I think I have an interesting thought about that. I think by and large, because I mean, this is the case with pretty much any country you go to. The vast majority of terrorist attacks will be domestic, and the U.S. is no different. The vast majority.
You need to stop right there.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not wrong about this.
One of these two presidents. So
let Kevin finish.
I'm not wrong about this, Joel. I swear to God, I'm not wrong about this. Most terrorist attacks in every country, pretty much. I think it might be literally every country. They're homegrown. But I think. And I think, all right, USA, Canada, Mexico,
what percentage in the United States?
But but Joel, I'm going to something. It's hard for Donald Trump. It's hard for Donald Trump to address the gun violence issue because it's a sensitive issue for Republicans. By diverting that and saying that's the immigrants that are killing people, you abdicate responsibility for the citizens here that do violence. I think that was the purpose of it, even if it was grossly exaggerated.
Every day there's a mass shooting.
If you get deported 3 times, you kill somebody.
Shooting.
That's a problem.
40,000 children
I agree with you. I'm cool as a cucumber
because of gun violence. Where's the answer to that?
And again,
even the Hispanic population has a problem with the immigration policies of this president.
And I agree. And I think if Biden were running if the Biden and his campaign were smart, they would have driven home the fact that bipartisan bill failed.
Thank you, because Trump decided he wanted to stick his fat ass into the process and convince senators not to vote for it. Who gives a fuck if the House of Representatives were not going to vote for it? Lay it in their lap and let them be the ones who catch the flack for not passing a bipartisan bill. It's the Republicans who are at fault for not passing a bipartisan bill to address the immigration problem.
Eliminate everything without even looking at it. Hindsight.
Oh, sorry, I was responding to a comment. Yeah, let's. I would suggest that we should keep our voice down. I know we're all passionate, but I'm gonna let me pull up on my other tabs. I found.
I see the comment about guns, and I'm like, yes, and Stoney doesn't know. They don't know where I stand on guns. And
David likes guns.
Who cares about police and guns? Who cares? Everyone should have access to a weapon, to a firearm. No restrictions. This is where America's headed. No restrictions at all. Everyone get yourself a firearm. No ID, no criminal record history. Everyone get yourself a gun.
And I guarantee you should be able to say fire in a crowded theater. Because
I'll contend that's not matter. That doesn't matter.
David's all on the Second Amendment. I'm all on the First Amendment.
Everyone, hey, it's the Wild Wild West now. People are getting shot up. People should be able to defend themselves from being shot up.
Look, listen. Our Constitution is probably one of the most solid, whether you agree with certain things or not. It's the most solid and best structured document ever written. And whether I agree with an amendment or disagree with an amendment, the one thing is we have the opportunity to amend our Constitution. We get to do the things to move us forward. And I think the Second Amendment, federally, leave it alone. States, if you want to take and tweak your Constitution, you must have a republic constitution, and that's the only requirement by the federal government. You can put those people in there that want to do that. So, look, David, you know my passion, and I love the fact that they're actually having a debate, but they're not debating. But the questions suck too.
They could have been better.
I mean, you need to hold.
No. We're talking about two leaders of the greatest country on the planet. They know what they're doing. They know what the questions are because they are president or were president.
Yeah,
I can't give them a pass on that.
I'm gonna give a quick word on the moderators. I think the moderators did not do a bad job. I think a lot of people were very worried. I think they did fine. I think most of their questions were incredibly predictable. I think most of these questions were things we saw coming. Most of those questions we asked about. At least one of us said at the beginning. I think it was very predictably. I think they were very predictable questions, and I appreciate that. For the most part, they did cut off the mics without being too abrasive about it. And I appreciate that they went back and asked them to re-answer the questions when they didn't answer them. I think a lot of the weaker ones we saw, especially in 2020, just let them run wild. Like I remember that first debate with Chris Wallace. I remember it kind of just ran wild because he didn't bring him back to the question. And I don't think they were entirely successful. I think the candidates were determined to not answer some of these questions, but they did try. I don't think they did they could have done a better job. I mean, there's always ways to improve, but I don't think by any stretch they did a bad job. I think by all means it was. I think by all means the moderators did fine. And
I still don't. I agree. The questions are on point, but they're showing the arrogance. But they're as frustrated. They're as frustrated as David. They are. They're frustrated as David because look, they're listening for an answer that they want.
Yeah.
Or a specific answer. And that's what David's doing.
I
can see that Donald Trump has avoided certain answers. Biden has avoided certain answers.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, even when I hear an answer that David doesn't, like with the pill, state rights. Well, basically, he's not going to do anything. He basically said, "It's the state. I'm not going to."
Basically, but what I'll say is,
interstate commerce
answer
clause.
That's an answer for me. He's not going to do anything because he believes in state rights.
Fucking do it. Okay,
that's just garbage. I mean, so I can't get a pill here in Florida because I live in Florida. But if I stepped over the Florida-Georgia line,
you go to Georgia,
I have a post office box in Georgia, I could get the pills that the Republican legislature in Florida said I could not get.
Yeah,
that don't make any sense. That's just crazy.
I don't think that it makes no sense. I mean, different states have different laws, but jumping into the whole skirting the questions thing.
Trump is for
states' rights.
Yes. You said that. He's for right. It's convenient for him to lean back on that.
He's good for exceptions on rape, incest, and the life of the mother, which some conservatives aren't, and he supports contraceptives, but he believes the states have the right to dictate those because they're not in the Constitution.
He supports But Kellen, you were saying?
But going back to the skirting question things, Joel, you are right. He would answer the questions, but he wouldn't do it. But he wouldn't say yes or no. He'll say, "Oh, the Supreme Court." Like we'll go back to Milford-Preston. Whatever the name is. Milford-Preston. Geez. With Milford-Preston, he said that the Supreme Court said it was okay, but that doesn't. And he sort of implied states' rights when he said the abortion question earlier, but he didn't answer the question in full. He answered part of it, and you can definitely draw a conclusion. But the Supreme Court did not protect Milford-Preston. They did not. They said we talked about this earlier today. When we were
No,
talking
he
about
misspoke there. Look,
No. Let Kellen finish. Let Kellen finish.
I'm agreeing with him. He misspoke there.
Let Kellen finish.
I understand. I mean, both candidates misspeak. Misspeaks happen. I'm not going to dwell on it. But that alone is not a sufficient answer, because even if they protect under the current statutes, you can make new statutes to limit it. And he didn't say whether he would or wouldn't. He did imply there was a states' rights issue, but he didn't answer the question about the pill specifically. That's more, I think, what happened.
I agree with that. Like I was telling David, but
negates everything you just said.
As a conservative, I heard the answer I wanted to hear.
Okay, then.
Democrats not going to hear the answer. They're never going to hear the answer because they're not looking for it. They want to.
Kelly, no, I know, and now our listeners and our viewers know that the Supreme Court did not rule that mifepristone is available and should remain available across the 50 states and territories. They just said that the people who brought the lawsuit had no standing.
And what does that mean?
Again, what Kellen was saying,
David,
there is no certain future
no standing
for mifepristone. Period. We know what Trump said. We know what conservatives want to say. We get it. We're just saying right now. We're just saying right now the pill is not protected in the future.
Listen, if the pitcher throws the ball to first base,
we're not talking baseball.
Yes, we
White
are.
Sox won 1-0 over Atlanta. Okay, we're done.
What he said is
he answered the question.
He did answer the question because
he did not, Joel.
That means it's safe.
Yes or no? It was a simple yes or no question.
It's safe. Right now, it's safe. He went safe because they didn't have precedence. It went back to safe. That's it. Safe.
It's not safe. You and I know
the drug is safe. Right now, the Supreme Court said safe.
They did not have standing.
Until somebody has precedence, it's safe. That's what he said. He said safe. I'm just saying.
The court said it was safe.
Baseball.
But regardless.
And he went.
It's bullshit.
But regardless, the constant straw manning in this debate, and I'll rag on Biden as well. Biden would pull everybody says this. Pretty much all the veterans prefer me over you. Trump said pretty much every veteran preferred me over you. The answer is it's contested. Different people have different opinions, but they're both trying to push this echo chamber narrative. Both of them are doing this, but they're trying to push an echo chamber narrative that everybody agrees with you, everybody agrees with me. They're just full of shit. And unfortunately, that's not true. People have divided opinions. And regardless of what the offices do, because I think a lot of offices do lean a certain way, like the official leadership of the offices do, the individuals have differing opinions. And it's just less, I know it's less elegant for the candidates to say, well, people have different opinions because they want to push their straw man narrative. But the straw manning, the constant exaggerating that both of them did, I think Trump had more examples, but Biden had them too. It was disappointing. It was fear-mongering. We're all going to die. We're all going to lose our money. The economy is going to go to shit. Your family's going to be murdered, et cetera, et cetera. We heard so little policy. We heard so little future policy. All we heard was dwelling on the past. And yes, it's important to learn from history. On the other hand, hindsight is 20/20, and sometimes it takes a while for hindsight to make sense because we had policy in the 90s, like the early 90s, that didn't cause us problems until 2008. I mean, that just as a random example, sometimes we when it comes to dwelling on the past, stuff as recently as the Biden administration, and this goes from, I would say, the bulk of the Trump administration too, we don't have the full picture. So it's not helpful for the American public to, go into this, this incredibly shallow discussion about whose fault the economy is. The answer is probably just is mostly some bullshit out of the control. I mean, we needed to hear policy.
That's
what
correct.
Will they do? We wanted to hear what will make childcare cheaper. Did either of them have sufficient answers? No.
That's not what people came for. Listen, I went to
That's what I
the
came for.
realty. I went to the realty interview. After I was done with the realty interview, I
Yes.
went over to
I recall.
Climb Cigars, and guess what? That's not what they're talking about this debate. They're wanting to know who's going to say the most crazy thing, who's going to beat who up. They don't give a shit about policy anymore. That's the problem. It's entertainment.
Yeah,
this is all this
I'd
is.
agree.
People came to watch this thing for the entertainment. We're sitting here debating and talking about they're not answering the questions, this and that. Did they give the people what they asked for?
No, it wasn't even entertaining.
Trump did.
I think it was boring.
I think
it was
Trump
boring.
did.
It was uninteresting.
The 2020 debates were fun. The 2020 debates had
give
entertainment
me
value.
that.
I don't think this one did.
I prefer that than the dribble that we got today.
Listen, I'm with you, and I'm just want to clarify. And I didn't mean to interrupt you the way I did, but what I'm going to say is, I've heard from the people that's not what they were looking at this debate. They wanted to see what stupid things Trump was going to hit him with. Oh, because they're just so excited about the bully, and
that's a condemnation of America.
And I agree. Look, I'm not going to disagree.
That's a sad state of affairs for America.
What we do here is we point out they don't answer the questions. We do that. We also point out how the question answers to me, maybe not to you. But tonight, we had two presidents of the United States, and neither one lived up to the commander-in-chief. Neither one came here to tell us why they should be president.
For an election that is supposed to be an existential crisis for America, the most important election of our lifetime, we were served dribble. We were served a shell of some of the greatest performances by past presidents to tell us what we need to know, or at least made us walk away feeling a certain way, besides bored, disappointed, and frustrated.
But I have discovered $6 billion for hostage. There's real opportunity here, fellas.
That's true.
If there's one thing I learned.
and I'm going to pick on my own candidate, and in that really, really secret meeting in the G87.
So secret that he has to tell the public about it.
It was a really, really secret meeting, but I'll tell you what I said.
Mercy.
It was.
And then I have to pick on Biden too. But look, I appreciate this night. I appreciate the people that stayed with us. David, thank you for tolerating me. I don't think we had a winner.
No.
I do believe that Trump was not as outrageous as expected. So that kind of plays into the fact that he will have good numbers with conservatives. Yeah. I think that Biden looked horrible tonight.
He did bad.
I mean, when you're pushing an age issue, I think that hurt him tonight. I think Biden leaves this with citizens of our country doubting that he's running our country.
Yeah.
I'll leave it with that. But other than that, David, you've been 100% correct. Kellen, spot on a lot of things that you said tonight.
Right back at you.
I'm disappointed. And I really came out of this with, this was a waste of time and resources. Yeah. Because we have two people running for president that aren't looking to run the country. They're looking for personal gain in the fact that it's an ego thing. Both had egos tonight. One couldn't keep his thoughts together, and the other couldn't answer the questions. So I'll say that. I'll get criticized by whoever wants to, but we need to come together. We need to have conversations. If these two would not act like they were in kindergarten, I mean, I brought my children to school and left them in classes that had more class than this class tonight.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I'll go next. Yeah, I agree. Both candidates failed to show. I think if there's any, if we're like digging for gold here, trying to find a single bit of knowledge learned, Trump is once again going for the isolationist thing that he went for in his first term. Biden will keep doing approximately what he's been doing as far as foreign policy goes. That's probably the biggest difference between the two candidates, anyways. Their approach to foreign policy, you know. So I think you can, I guess, if that's a big issue for you, you kind of know where you want to stand. If you want to be isolationist, other countries deal with their problems. You know, defend our own border. Don't worry about any outside. Then Trump will be a great candidate for you. Both do defend Israel. So if you're pro-Palestine, I'm sorry, you're shit out of luck.
I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to make a point. I didn't feel that tonight. I usually feel that with Donald Trump, that isolationist thing. I think he just said, I'm a tough enough person where I'm not going to have, it would never have happened. So, but you're right. If that's where
it's still something good for anybody who's considering voting to know. It'll be about the same as far as that goes. That's the main difference between the candidates. Again, I don't think either of them, as much as Trump liked to claim he was in prime and Joe wasn't. They both were in. I think they're both in worse shape. If you look at Trump of 2016 compared to now, noticeable difference. Biden 2020 compared to now, there's also a noticeable difference. Yeah. Neither are aging well. Nobody ages well when they're the president. Look at Abraham Lincoln and Bill Clinton, just as like some prime examples. Sure. Did not age like milk in office, and these other two are examples of that. Right. We're going to have an age problem no matter what. Who Trump picks as his VP, I think will. I don't know how much it'll move the needle as far as voting goes, but it'll move the needle as far as history goes, because both of them have a high chance of kicking the bucket in office. Both of them do. And it'll be whether Trump's, I think a lot of it, as far as I go, will be weighing between Trump's VP and Kamala. Which one of them probably has more confidence to run the country? Because I don't think either of these guys do. I think they're both figureheads at this point. Like you said, Joel, that they're here for personal gain. They're here to stroke their own egos. It's tolerant. And look, we can all disagree on stuff. We can even fight. I mean, you saw some of it earlier. We got really passionate, but at least it's on policy. At least it's about things, like actual things, not about who's the bigger crook. Biden's a crook. Over what charges? You're a bad policy. Well, what about your fake news? Sorry, Biden. None of that nonsense. Like, we need to. I think with the American people, I think they wanted more entertainment, and I think they would have settled for more policy, but we didn't get either of those good. Incredibly disappointed, but this was exactly what I was expecting. I said at the beginning I thought it was going to be boring / tedious debate, and it was that. I'm sorry. I was going to say. No, go on.
When David goes and wraps it up, I think the one thing is I can't wait to hear what the people say tomorrow.
Yeah.
What we're saying right now is great, and I'm listening very carefully, but it would be very interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Did the people that had a certain expectation, those fighters I was talking about, did they get what they wanted? Did they come out? Did they? I don't think the middle, the undecided, the people that voted for Trump that might not vote for him this time, or the people that voted for Biden and might not vote for him this time, I don't think those people come out of here with any better decision. But again, I'll come back. I'll pull out.
Yeah, no, you summed up what I was going to say. As far as the bingo card went, I got 2 bingos. Actually, we got most of these things were hidden. Biden did not touch on Project 2025. Trump did not announce his vice president. Biden never said, come on, man. Donald never said Sleepy Joe. There was no deep state conspiracy rants.
You win.
We got the malarkey. That's important. And interestingly enough, neither side dove as much into the shithole that is the the legislative branch as I thought. But then again, it's because neither of them could win. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, it was pretty predictable. This was exactly how I expected. There are worse ways to spend an evening, but also a million better ones too. So,
all right. So,
if you didn't like the live stream, for God's sake, please do.
Right. So, one thing that's very clear for me, America, or at least the voting public, go out there and do your own damn research.
Neither of these candidates told the
Get
truth.
about 5 months, less than 5 months, 4 months, 3 months before you vote. Take your time and research. Take the time in your busy lives to research. This tonight was a disappointment. Okay, there you go.
Can I interject? I'm just elaborating. I'll just elaborate.
11 o'clock at night. Go.
No, it's okay. I'll let you finish. But I had personally throughout this thing, and I like to do a lot of my research ahead of time. I have 11 tabs open of things I was just trying to fact check. 8 of them were for Trump, 3 of them were for Biden. There were 2 Biden things I already knew were wrong. If there was any claim that stood out to you, maybe it was the migrants killing hundreds of thousands. Maybe it was the $6 billion for hostage or the $200 million for Ukraine. Maybe it was the approval rating within law enforcement for Biden versus law enforcement for Trump. Maybe it was the black community thing because they both claimed they were like great and the other one was bad. Regardless, if any claim stood out to you, check it. I think almost all of these were wrong. Or at the very least exaggerated, sometimes by hundreds of folds. If anything stood out to you, anything that you think may be changing your vote, just go and confirm to see if it's true, because both were full of crap. Sorry, David, go back. I'm done talking now.
As I always said, everyone do your own damn research, period. An informed voter is a better voter.
Yeah.
Neither candidate gave their field workers, their team, their campaign staff, the people out in the streets, in the communities, knocking on doors, doing the work of the campaign, didn't give them the red meat that they needed to say, wow, we're so galvanized now that we're going to move the heavens and the earth for our candidate. I can't see myself leaving tomorrow and saying, I'm going to rush down to the local, Democratic campaign office and grab a whole bunch of yard signs and T-shirts and Biden Harris 2024, hats, or run down to, the Trump, campaign office and grab a bunch of Trump, material. Neither candidate did that tonight.
Yeah.
It was a disservice. It was neither entertaining or informative. And Biden started off the debate in a sad state, and it did not leave me with confidence that he is ready. Yes, poised. That lack of poise that he can maintain the duties of president and the demands of president in his current state. And I waited for this. I was looking for a robust performance by Biden. I was looking for Trump to really speak to the people behind the camera lens. Biden just didn't appear presidential to me. Trump did. Unfortunately, neither candidate really talked about the main issues that I wrote down before the debate that needed to be addressed. My kitchen table issues, like many Americans, in my belief, were ignored. So that's my final word on that.
But does that come? The question there is just, does that come from the questions that were asked? But here, I want to ask our audience and those that tune in later. I want to know who you thought won. I mean, we've already said that neither one won.
That's your opinion.
But who won and who lost? And usually everybody says, well, the people, the voter lost. Well, they did. Tonight they did. But if you had to choose one of these two men today because of this performance, are you voting for Biden or are you voting for Trump? And unfortunately, whatever decision you make, it's your decision. I'm saying that Trump won this debate, and that's just simply because he was there. He had his cognizance. He really controlled for his age. He was there.
Yeah,
and for me, that's where I'm going to say, neither one did a great job tonight, and they left a lot on the table. But if I had to say who left this thing with a win, I'm going to say that Donald Trump really won this debate tonight.
Yeah. I would echo some similar sentiments. Trump was there and Biden wasn't. However, I think Trump, I almost I can't even say that he won because he almost nothing he said was authentic. It was dribble. He terrible, flubbed every number, made some conspiracy claims that came out of fucking nowhere, talked about a secret, meaning so secret he has to tell the public now instead of before. And there was so much just snake oil salesman to it, even though he had better voice.
Listen, you're doing the same thing they did tonight. You're not answering the question. Who won? You can't.
I'm getting there. I'm rating each one. I'm rating each one on their own merits. That's what I think of Trump. I think Biden was not really there tonight. He was stammering, and he looked like he needed sleep more than I do right now, more than Joel and David do right now.
I'm just glad I got my Jerry Washington pen.
Biden flubbed the questions, not because he over-exaggerated for the most part. There was a couple times where he did, but just because he failed to make strong impressions. He didn't. He had his strongest pieces of ammunition he left on the table. He left so much on the table. Trump didn't really leave much on the table. Biden left a lot on the table. Biden failed to emphasize the bipartisan border bill failure. He failed to emphasize some of the handful of gains that did happen in foreign policy, because there were also a lot of losses. He failed to hammer home, so much about the situation here. He failed to hammer home his best points ultimately. So he failed miserably in that. Ultimately, I couldn't even tell you. I would like to say oh, Biden won or oh, Trump won, but I literally don't fucking know. You have one who left everything on the table and one who is spewing nonsense. I got nowhere. I got nothing.
I don't think either candidate won. America lost. If I were to vote for the next president based on these two, that's
very good
cool.
point. Your thing didn't show, Joel, but
let's. I like what
Lexi said was that Biden's failure was, and this was something she praised more eloquently than me. He failed to fact check Trump's obvious flubs.
That's a very good point. Very good point.
It would have been so easy for him to say, we don't even have 100,000 murders in all of America this year, let alone for migrants. That would have been easy, but he didn't go there. She's right.
Very good point. Thank you for the comment, Miss Lexi. As I was saying, America lost. If I were to vote right now between the two, I don't think I would vote for either. Deep down in my heart, however, because we're not in a scandal, the current president does not have a scandal. We're not screwed up in the Ukraine and also in Israel. And the economy is doing well, whether you say it's on paper or in reality, It is doing well. We're not in a recession. You can't say we're in a recession. I'm going to go with the hot hand right now, and that would be Biden.
And as much as I wish I could vote for anybody else, right now I think I'm going to vote for Vermin Supreme for president. The homeless dude is going to give everybody a pony. I think he has the strongest economic plan of all the major candidates, and that includes RFK Jr. But in all seriousness, I think both don't have their finger on the pulse of policy. Both are unpredictable, and both are liars. But I personally feel, I think, a little closer to David than Joel. I still am not convinced I'm voting Biden. To be clear, I'm still not convinced.
Yeah, understandable. Understandable.
You're muted. Joel, you're muted.
Okay, Donald Trump wins in November. You guys can't dispute that because his performance tapped the right people. And what Biden looked like tonight gives no confidence to the independents. And the numbers lean towards Trump right now. He did nothing to diminish himself, and Biden never took any extra ground. So right now, Biden wins in November.
You're right. You're right. You can stop right there, Joe. I got you. You're right. Biden wins in November.
Listen, because Biden didn't do what he needed to do tonight. Yeah. We don't know who's running the country, because if that guy's running the country, he has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah. I like to see the numbers of how many people actually watch this, because remember, this is not September, this is not October, this is June 27th.
But it was
people are on vacation. People are not worried about a debate.
Listen, how many people simulcasted it? I mean, we even did it. But
I like to see the numbers.
A lot more people that were actually talking about wanting to watch this and saying, I don't like either one of them, but I'm going to watch, because they were looking for them. They were looking like it's going to be Rocky Mountain out here,
The Democrats should be panicking, according to Lexi.
Yeah, that's a good point as well, Lexi. A lot of people just see the highlights. Granted, I'm not sure what defines a highlight in something like this, because even those punchy moments were wrong somehow. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you said. I will contend that since this is so early, it's not decided. If you were to take a snapshot right now, Trump would win 100%. But then again, looking at 2020, I think Biden fucked up the first debate horribly. So did Trump. Like, they both fucked up that first debate horribly. But in the second debate, neither of them fucked up as horribly. But in the second debate, I think by and large Biden did better in that second one. And ultimately, it's not the debates. I think most people come into debates and they want to hear the answer they want to hear. I think most people are here to validate their opinion, not to create new ones. Ultimately, it's going to be whether the policy inspires people, whether the messaging inspires people, whether the communities spread the message as well. Ultimately, that is what will decide, not something like the debate, at least in my theory. Ultimately, it's impossible to fully predict, except in rare instances where it is. But we'll see. We'll see how this develops. Trump has the upper hand right now. We'll see how it goes. Well, I have nothing else more to add. I want to take a shower.
We have 8 minutes until we've been on for 3 hours. So
Lord.
Well, we might as well go. We might as well finish.
I'm just letting you know that I'm wrapping up. Look, share, understand that we are your political innovators. We're looking at the things that that people aren't looking at. We're trying to analyze what's going on. Tonight was not the debate that we anticipated. It should have been better. You deserve better as a citizen in this United States of America. So tune in to Morning Constitution. Tune in to the David Washington Show. Tune in to Countertop Politics. But most of all, tune in to You Can't Make This Shit Up, because we're talking about the same issues. First question I had when I went to the realtors was the first topic we talked about, the penny sales tax in Seminole County. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the right things. David, I appreciate the hard effort you put into making sure our shows are good. Thank you if you tuned in today. Thank you if you're watching this later, and you've actually gotten to this almost 3-hour mark. This is an incredible group of people that are working to try to help you, whether you're thinking about being in politics, whatever you're thinking about doing, do it, but do it right. Get with us. We're professionals in the field. Talk to us. David knows how to win races. Joel knows what you're looking for. Look, and we have talent like this. We have Mr. Clark here coming to you and having intellectual conversation with you. That's our associates. So, Kellen, thank you very much. David, thank you,
Joel. Kellen. Thank you, Joel. Thank you,
Dave.
team.
Have a good night, everybody.
Send us out.